Hello. Right here is where I decided to set up camp. This is part 2 on how to winter camp. And this is going to be the setup. I'm going to put a link down below where you can see the basic knowledge and gear. So I've chosen this spot right behind me. And there's a tree on this side and a tree on this side that I can run a ridge line right straight across for my tarp. But the first thing I've got to do is I've got to stamp down the snow and make somewhat of a footprint for my tarp to lay in. You want it a little bigger than what your tarp's going to be, because that's going to keep snow from falling onto your tarp, thus moving around, getting your gear and your sleep system wet. You want to keep that free from snow if you can. So I'm going to start by stamping this down and making an area that I can lay my tarp. So now I've got a pretty good footprint all stamped down. Some places this was, 6 inches deep in this spot. But this is the same thing if you have 2 feet of snow or whatever. You just stamp it down until it compresses. And then that's where you can throw your tarp and so on. But this is stamped down pretty good. It actually has a hollow right here. It's going to actually act as a pillow, because that's where my head will be, up that way. And it's a pretty good curve to it. You don't always find your ideal spot, and you got to work with what you get. So right now I'm going to go get my gear and I'm going to put up the ridge line and start making my shelter. And then after that I can throw in my gear and so on inside. Okay, right now I've got my gear over here, and I brought out this 9x12 poly tarp. This is what I've used for years. It's on sale a lot in my local Canadian Tire store for $5. I've used this, like I said, for years, and it's worked great. And that's what I'll be using, because, like I said, you can do this stuff on a budget. Your most expensive is your sleep system. Now I got mine, through years of gathering different places and such, and I got mine for about $100, the total sleep system. But there's many sleep systems out there, and a lot of people have to save for them to get into winter camping. Now what I want to do right now is I just want to run a ridge line from there over to here, and then I can set up my tarp. Now I've got the ridge line across there. I'm just going to take my tarp, fold it out, and what I want to do is I want to put my 12 feet part down the length of it. So yeah, that would be this way here. So all I have to do is put this over top. That's going to make a 4.5 foot on each side, since actually, yeah, it's 9 foot wide, so it's 4.5 feet on both sides. I may have to drop this down. I just put it up there for the time being, and now I can drop this down, anchor my sides, and set it up the way I want. So right now I have tied this to this tree out here, and this is what I was talking about. You can see with the snow and the trees, it's getting on me. And this jacket here is a waterproof jacket, same as the pants, so I don't have to worry about getting wet through them. But out here on a snowy day with the snow on the trees, it just snowed yesterday, you can get very wet quickly, so dress appropriately. Now what I've done is I've tied back to the second grommet back, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And by doing that, what that's going to do is I'm going to be able to fold those ends in and make doors to close off that end. So that's what I'm going to do with this side. I'm going to close this in. So I tied the other side back on the second grommet to a small tree that's there. I did somewhat get a wooden stake that I made in the ground over there, but it's not really secure. I've got to see if I can fix that. So a lot of time in the winter, the ground is frozen. You can't get a stake. So you got to be creative. And I have taken logs, big logs, thrown that down beside and tied to that. And right now what I'm going to do is grab a bunch of this brush, a handful of it, tie my line around that, so it don't slip through. If you keep it tight enough, it won't slip off, and then I can tie to that. Like that's good right there. And now I can just tie off to that. And that is what's going to be my stake or my tie out in this front part. Now you see that that's closed in on the end, and the tarp goes out and it covers that footprint that I made. Now all I have to do is spread my 6x8 tarp inside, but it's not big enough to fit a 6x8 in this, so I'm going to fold it in half. So then I'll have either a 3x8 or a 4x6 tarp. I'll probably use the 4x6, although I'm going to see which one fits better for my sleep set and for my gear. Now that is the shelter all set up. I've got cover, and why I want cover out here in case it starts raining, freezing rain, if it snowed, or just to break the wind while I'm out here. Now, I've got my tarp inside. I can stake that on one side so it won't slide around as much on the two sides because there's none in the on both ends. But I could also do a button method and stake that out as well, just so it don't move around. Never step on a tarp that's on snow because it's very slippery. Now a lot of times I don't bother pinning it down. I just lay my sleep system on it. I crawl on it. It might move around a little bit, but once I get settled, it's not moving. And my sleep mat is not moving once it's set on that tarp either. So right now I've got my tarp in there, and the good thing about the snow, you can beat that down and press that down to somewhat, you know, the shape you want for sleeping as well. This is a little bit on a downward grade right now, and if I don't do something, I'll probably pat down this corner on this side. Otherwise I'll slide down during the night a little bit. So I either gotta pat it down or stake it so it don't slide. But now you throw in your mat and you throw in your sleep system, you're good to go. So now I've just rolled out my sleep mat. A sleep pad or sleep mat is very important. That insulates me from the snow. The tarp is a waterproof barrier, and the sleep pad is an insulator. If I didn't have the sleep pad, I would wake up shivering and could be in the, first stages of hypothermia. The ground will suck the body heat right from you, and it can be deadly. So you want a good sleep pad. This one here was only $20 at Canadian Tire again, and you can find them all over the place. This one here is a closed cell foam one. I've had good luck with those. But test your sleep pads, because I can't tell you what will work and what won't work. You have to find out that for yourself, but test it in a safe environment. This one here, like I said, is a 1/2 inch of closed cell foam, and it has worked for me on top of the snow. So very important step is a sleep pad. And now, whatever sleep bag you have, you just lay on top of that. And always get a sleeping bag that is rated for far more than the temperature you plan to be out in. That's the advice I can give you. And also with the sleep pad and also the sleep bag, you should be able to get a good night's sleep. I have for many years.